Over the past week, Russian forces have struck cities including Kyiv, Kropyvnytsky, Odessa, Zaporizhia, Dnipro, Poltava, Kharkiv, Kryvyi Rih, Sumy, and many other Ukrainian settlements. Civilians have been affected and civilian and energy infrastructure has been damaged.
Our partners must understand that these Russian strikes are not only against our people, but also against all international efforts, against diplomacy, which we are trying to use to end this war. Russia is targeting those who want to end the war. It's impossible to ignore the hundreds of Shahed drones every night. We are expecting a serious response. We are working on it. A strong response is needed, primarily from America, Europe, and everyone in the world who is betting on diplomacy. Russia must be forced into peace, and only force will work.
According to President Zelenskyy, the U.S. proposal for an unconditional ceasefire remains unanswered by Russia for too long. If real pressure had been applied to Russia, a ceasefire could have already been achieved. Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine Andriy Sybiha stated that the Russian attacks on Ukrainian cities should be seen as a Kremlin's direct response to U.S. diplomacy.
The Russian drone strike on Dnipro last night killed 4 people and injured more than 24 others, including a pregnant woman. Residential areas are once again being attacked. This is Putin's response to U.S. ceasefire proposals, more war crimes and attacks on civilians. Andriy Sybiha, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, on X social network.
The Kremlin intends to continue dragging out negotiations for a temporary ceasefire. That's why Putin has once again claimed that the Ukrainian government is supposedly illegitimate and proposed establishing external governance in Ukraine under the authority of the UN, the US, and the EU. The United Nations, Washington, and Brussels have rejected this proposal and said that the legitimacy of the Ukrainian authorities was beyond question.
Russia, and Putin specifically, as I understand it, have made the decision that as long as they have resources and reserves, they objectively do not want any peace agreements, let alone a ceasefire. The last thing they want is a freeze at the existing front line. When there were talks, they were held.
But when it came to fulfill agreements, Putin began to stall the negotiations, and the Kremlin's propaganda continues to lie about supposed violations by Kyiv. However, Ukraine has hard evidence of Russian strike on energy infrastructure, as stated by President Zelenskyy.
There was a targeted Russian drone strike on the gas infrastructure in Poltava, and an artillery strike on Kherson that damaged the city's electricity infrastructure. One of the Russian strikes on Kharkiv also damaged the city's heating infrastructure. All this shows that Russia will continue to sabotage diplomacy and will do so further. Moscow's only tactic remains to drag out the war. Putin says things that make it seem like he's agreeing with the American side, but in reality, the Russian army continues to press forward with all its military means.
The Kremlin is attempting to undermine the legitimacy of Ukraine's government, believing this will give them the right to violate any agreements, according to analysts at the Institute for the Study of War. Putin does not want an end to the war with Ukraine. On the contrary, he is doing everything to capture as much Ukrainian territory as possible.
The Kremlin continues to hold negotiations hostage and is attempting to extract additional concessions from the West following the progress made in the ongoing ceasefire negotiations. The Kremlin remains committed to its goal to prolong any negotiations for a temporary frontline ceasefire or permanent peace agreement in order to continue making incremental gains on the battlefield and establish favorable conditions to pursue Ukraine's complete capitulation. From the Institute for the Study of War report.
Experts believe that the US and the European Union have real leverage over Russia, primarily in the form of additional sanctions that could inflict maximum damage on the aggressor country's economy, thus forcing Russia into peace. Reported by Alexandra Zaslavets, Natalia Husak, Volodymyr Stengelov, UATV News.
Following negotiations between Ukrainian and US delegations in Saudi Arabia, Ukraine has moved closer to achieving a just peace. EU countries have expressed their readiness to play a full-fledged role alongside their partners in future peace talks. Turkey has also signaled its willingness to contribute to peace efforts in Ukraine. This was stated by Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan following his meeting with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk.
We consider Ukraine's acceptance of a ceasefire in negotiations with the US to be a positive and important step. We now hope that Russia will respond constructively. If recent developments bring Russia and Ukraine back to the negotiating table, we are ready to contribute to establishing a just and lasting peace, including hosting talks.
Meanwhile, US military aid to Ukraine resumed via a logistical hub in Poland immediately after the negotiations. This was confirmed by Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski. During his visit to Warsaw following the Jeddah talks, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha discussed the operation of US Starlink systems in Ukraine with Polish officials.
We are grateful for the support and the opportunity to use Starlink, as Poland has spent approximately $200 million on this. This is vital for our military.
French President Emmanuel Macron, one of the authors of a multinational peacekeeping mission in Ukraine, emphasized that peace depends entirely on Russia, while security guarantees remain a top priority for Ukraine. Earlier, representatives of defense ministers from 34 countries gathered in France to discuss strengthening Europe's defense capabilities and continuing support for Ukraine.
I welcome the progress made during the discussions between the United States of America and Ukraine held today in Jeddah, particularly regarding the idea of a possible 30-day ceasefire. The ball is now clearly in Russia's court. France and its partners remain committed to a solid and lasting peace, supported by robust security guarantees for Ukraine. Emmanuel Macron, President of France, on social network X.
The UK and France are currently working on a plan to deploy peacekeeping forces in Ukraine if an agreement to suspend hostilities is reached.
Уже сейчас мы можем говорить о том, что это будут французы.
We can already confirm that French, British and Danish forces will be involved, and discussions are underway regarding participation from other Scandinavian countries. Romania and Poland have also expressed willingness to provide bases and logistics for these missions. It is significant that concrete discussions are taking place about who will be on the ground and who will oversee aerospace security.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and European Council President Antonio Costa hailed the Ukraine-US negotiations as a positive step toward a lasting peace. EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy Kaja Kallas stressed the importance of the humanitarian aspects of the talks.
I welcome the U.S.-Ukraine talks in Jeddah, notably regarding a ceasefire and resumption of U.S. intelligence and security assistance to Ukraine, but also in humanitarian field. The ball, as always, is in Russia's court. The EU will do its full part to achieve a just and durable peace. Kaja Kallas, European Union High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, on social network X.
On March 15, the UK Prime Minister will convene European leaders supporting Kyiv to discuss peacekeeping efforts aimed at deterring the Kremlin's aggression against Ukraine. According to Reuters, citing UK government spokesperson Dave Paris, this meeting will be a continuation of the London summit, where the UK leader announced the formation of a coalition of the willing. Reported by Katerina Bastun, Victoria Smirnova, UATV News.